Alrighty guys, so this is the new M4 MacBook Air, the base model, and today we're going to be testing it out to see if it's really all that good. With a new price of only $999, which is $100 less than the previous generation, it seems like, at least on paper, this is a big bang for your buck. You're getting the new M4 chip with much better efficiency and performance. Everything else is kind of just the same because you're still getting the same overall body, form factor, battery, etc, etc. So we're gonna be doing a couple of real life tests, and this is gonna be an honest review on what I really think of the new M4 Air. But before we get into it, make sure to drop a like and a comment below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, turn on the post notifications to see when I upload, and let's get right into it. So here we are on the new M4 MacBook Air, and we're gonna be doing some real life testing. I don't like doing all the Geekbench scores and all that because it doesn't really mean anything. Obviously the spec numbers are going to be higher on the new M4 chip versus something like an M3 or M2, M1, etc, etc. And I know a lot of you guys who have been following my channel for some time like when I do real life testing. So yeah, let's get right into it. So we are currently on the screen and we're going to be just navigating around as our first productivity real life test. Now I've done this in my first impressions video, but basically I'm going to just go ahead and open every single thing just to kind of max it out. I want to see if this thing slows down, if this thing gets hot and overheats, thermal throttles. But yeah, this is what I always do. I like to test the speed by just opening everything possible. So we just basically click through everything, and as you can see, this thing is just crazy fast. It just launches up in just seconds. We got Keynote, so let's just start playing around. Let's open a new presentation. Let's look for something a little bit more heavy load. This one looks kind of cool. So Kyoto, create. And this is like your day-to-day tasks, whether you're a student or just, making documents and whatnot. So let's just flood this thing in here, let's add in the table, let's pop that in there. Dynamic, how about that? This thing is looking pretty crazy right now. We're gonna add a slide, add a couple more slides, just randomly selecting things. This is like your productivity, your everyday task. Maybe you're doing a lot of things at once. So let's say you're working on this document, then you're going on Safari and you're web browsing, doing some research, clicking on random things. We're gonna go on images, let's get some photos and add it to our document. So hopefully I don't get copyrighted, but let's just get some photos. Copy image, where's copy image? And we're gonna paste it into our Keynote. Let's say you're multitasking, adding stuff to your slides, just add more photos, just basically just duplicate this as much as we possibly can. Just loading it up. Yeah, everything just seems very fluid, as you can see. And we still have all these applications open on the bottom. Now let's say you wanna write some notes, right? So you're jotting down some notes. Let's create a new document, fill this thing up. Maybe you want to add a chart in here, fill in the chart. Add a photo, might as well. Blah, 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 blah. As you guys can see, everything is very seamless. You can just work on multiple things at once without it slowing down. So we're going to open up the activity monitor just to get an idea of how much are we really putting on this computer in terms of its load. So as of currently, we see that the system is only using 3%. Idle is 90%, so we're really not even pushing the limits at all. We're not even close. So yeah, we're gonna leave all this stuff open and let's open up some Adobe software. So let's start with Photoshop. Now this is gonna be more CPU and GPU intensive, so we should be able to see a spike in the activity monitor. So let's create a new document. Let's just go back to the photo we were working on earlier. Let's actually bump up the resolution to like 500 dpi just to really stress test this thing. So let's say you're working on Photoshop, you're adding effects, adding gradients and whatnot. So yeah, everything is very fluid. Like it's not lagging behind. I'm still going with this thing. Let's add another layer of the photo, resize it, maybe want to add some distortion and some various effects to your image. Let's go to transform, let's go to warp, and let's just start manipulating this image. Just like so. Look at that, everything is still just smooth. Like it just, I'm shocked. I'm actually blown away because my PC that I've custom built for 4 times the price of this machine, doing all this is definitely gonna slow that thing down and the fans are gonna kick on. Okay, so let's take a look at our CPU usage. It's just like 10%, 14%. And it does drop immediately when you're not on the actual application. Like, yes, we do have Photoshop open, but we're not selected on here. And as you can see, the Photoshop application is only using, as of currently, 4%. So the moment we press back into Photoshop, the load jumps up to around 15%. But even so, 15% is like nothing compared to what the rest of it can handle. Let's add to this load. We're gonna minimize Photoshop and open up Lightroom. So Lightroom should be slightly more intensive considering that we are gonna be editing raw photos off the cloud from my account. So we have a couple of photos on here from my account, which I'm gonna manipulate as well. So we have the M4 MacBook Air here. And let's just start playing around with this. So the activity monitor shows the CPU is getting really heavily used just because of Lightroom. So it does seem this program's a little bit more intensive. We are editing raw photos, and yeah, the adjustments are very quick. Let me just try to give you a little bit of a better view here. But yeah, adjusting the highlights, very instant, not slow. Contrast, exposure, let's play around with the color grade here. Let's just make it look all wonky. But if you look at the overall system usage, it's only 14% and the user is 36%. And with that being said, it's actually being very efficient still. Even though we're doing intensive tasks, the idle on here is still hitting highs of 70. So switching between more photos here, these are all raw images, playing around with this. Yeah, I'm just shocked. Like, my PC can't even do this. And this is a freaking base model MacBook Air. Let's open up Adobe Premiere. So this might be the most intensive part because Premiere is very heavy on both the CPU and the GPU. And especially when we have all this stuff open, it's gonna really push the RAM to its max. So yeah, I'm gonna grab my external hard drive here. This is NVMe 990 Pro. And I'm gonna plug this in. This is gonna be my scratch disk. Let's just get a random video here where this is all 4K footage. So let's just get some automotive stuff and just drag it into our project here. Okay, and then we're gonna drag it into our timeline, just like that. As you can see, instant, very, very fast. So this is 4K out of the EOS R, and it's a very high 10-bit footage. And let's scroll through it. Wow, look at that. Very fluid scrubbing. And if I play back, instant response. Wow. Now, the physical memory, we are using about 12.5 gigabytes out of the 16. It is climbing, but we still have another 4 gigabytes left. So we're not done here. We're still gonna be, pushing this thing. Now, the last test I wanna do on top of all this stuff is a little bit of gaming. So I'm not gonna be playing any heavy titled applications just because I'm just using the free stuff on here. All right, so here we go. I'm actually gonna bump up the volume so we can hear the speakers. Let's take this ramp right here. Ooh. Oh my gosh, can I land it? Yes, sir. I gotta say, this thing is pretty sick. It's smooth, it's buttery, the graphics look pretty decent as well. So I'm gonna lower the volume real quick and I'm gonna keep this game going. I'm still controlling it. And I'm just gonna feel the temperatures. A little bit warmer than what we started with, but it's still very cool. I know like the M1s, they had a big issue with the cooling. They weren't as efficient, and the M2s got a little bit better, but not like crazy. So we still have Asphalt 8 open in the background, which is using about 20% CPU performance, and GPU is about 30%. So the usage is very low. Like if you're on like a gaming PC, those things would be hitting like the max, like the 90% ranges. So yeah, hopefully this can give you guys an idea of what this new M4 MacBook Air is capable of. Like, you can pretty much throw anything you want at it and it's just gonna do it. So yeah, very surprising performance on this thing. So here we have it, the new M4 Air. I gotta say, I am blown away. It really does not feel like an Air at this point. This is more so like a MacBook Pro. And with the M4 chip becoming even better and smarter and faster and even more efficient, that means we are able to get less heat out of this thing. That was one of the biggest things with the entire MacBook Air lineup being a fanless design, is the thermal throttling, the overheating issues. But even when I'm pushing this thing pretty dang hard, it doesn't heat up. And even when it does get kind of warm, it doesn't slow down, it doesn't throttle because it's not hitting that thermal limit. Mind you, my testing is in a controlled environment where it is very cold in here. If it is the summertime, things might be a little bit different. But yeah, I'm honestly surprised at what this thing is capable of. You know, comparing it to my custom built PC, I think this kind of beats it in terms of how well it's able to handle multiple tasks. I do think it's a plus that Apple now uses 16 gigabytes as standard for the RAM, because that really helps with the multitasking. Now, I think this is great for pretty much most users, people who like to do productivity, web browsing, photo, video editing, gaming. But if you are going to be a user that is going to be really pushing it even beyond what I've done today, you know, 3D graphics and animation or heavier title games, then a pro could actually benefit from that. Now, with every pro, there's always a con, and these cons pretty much apply to all of the other MacBooks in the past. The lack of ports, that really kills it for me, because you only get 2 USB-C ports. So if you are going to be plugging in any accessories, you know, hard drives and whatnot, you are very limited to what you have on here. The next con is also the lack of storage on this thing. So for a base model, it comes with 256 gigabytes of storage, but you're not actually getting the whole amount. The only usable amount of storage is around 205 gigabytes. So if you are going to be filling this thing up with any files or downloading programs, you will max that out pretty quickly. Now, if you are on a Apple Silicon Mac and you're looking to upgrade, is it really worth the jump? Personally, I think anything from like M2 and up, it's not really worth it, because those chips are also extremely powerful. Now, if you are on an older, you know, Intel-based Mac or just the M1 chip, then there is a considerable upgrade. So hopefully this video gave you guys an idea of what this little MacBook Air is capable of. It does come in 2 sizes. This is the 13-inch if you want the larger one. The 15-inch, that is also an option. You do get more screen real estate and a longer battery life. With that being said, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a like, comment below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.